Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sanyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasa Gaura Bhaktavrinda Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Well, we'll see what happens. I thought a lot about continuing, and Krishna, Krishna. I reached a few conclusions. This is part of the Juhu story, so I'm sure it's related to Juhu. I'm sure that Giriraj Maharaj has, I have all confidence in his handling a very delicate situation expertly. I'm sure there's many lessons in the, as Sesrup Maharaj calls it, the final lesson that are worthwhile for all of us to hear. And if I start losing it again, somebody else should be prepared with a portable microphone to read. When Gargamuni came, this is we're at the bottom of page 557. When Gargamuni came and described how he was organizing Southeast Asia for, quote, spiritual encyclopedia sales, Prabhupada said, "A lion in the chase and a lamb at home. May you be blessed by Krishna." Then he began to cry. "What can I do?" he lamented. "You are doing so much service. I can only pray to Krishna on your behalf." Gargamuni replied that he could find no one in the world besides Prabhupada whom he wanted to serve. Prabhupada smiled and said, "That I could understand. You are not one to serve anyone very easily." Gargamuni was a really heavy guy. Later that night, Prabhupada spoke for half an hour. Quote, "Material enjoyment is wine, women, and flesh," he said. "It is a very dangerous life." Hearing an airplane overhead, he commented, "Formerly also there were airplanes, floating palaces, lakes, gardens, carnival, when he did it just to show his wife how great a yogi was. This 747 is nothing." Jayapataka arrived the next day. Prabhupada had been asking about Mayapur, and Jayapataka gave him a full report. But when he asked Prabhupada to sign legal document in response to a show cause notice from the West Bengal government, Tamal Krishna explained that Prabhupada had already drafted an affidavit in which he stated that everything in his name belonged to ISKCON and that he was holding it only as a Bena Midar, a trustee, on behalf of the society. After he passed away, his last will would take effect. For the time being, Prabhupada wanted nothing more to do with these things. Now there is no other way but to make me completely aloof from all management, Prabhupada confirmed. There is no expectation of my living. My duration of life is finished. If, by Krishna's grace, I survive, that is another thing. He held up his arm, simply a bundle of bones. Whatever I drink is passed out. Now the platform for Krishna consciousness is made. If you work hard, it will succeed more and more. Distribute literatures, that will push on. Tamal Krishna wrote in his diary, though it was warm, Prabhupada was wrapped with a chadar. He was slightly shaking all over. There was no color in his face, and his extremities were more swollen than usual. He told Upendra to call everyone in. Brahmananda Swami, Jayapataka Swami, Yasomati Nandan, and myself, he asked, so what is to be done as things are going on like this? Then he asked Jayapataka, what does your astrologer decide? What does your astrologer say? Now you all decide. It was obvious that we had to take a new direction in Prabhupada's care. After some discussion, we decided to take up Ayurvedic treatment again. We must locate the best available Vaidya in Bombay. Yasomati Nandana Prabhu was dispatched to find him. After consultation, he met with Giriraj, then called Sri K. Somaya, who suggested his own family physician, Ram Gopal Vaidya, from Lonavala. Early the next morning, K.J. Somaya arrived with the Vaidya, who took Prabhupada's pulse and diagnosed the disease as a problem with the kidneys and the liver. He prescribed various things to eat and drink: sandesh, mosambi juice, mung water, barley water, papaya, chiku, raisins, fig water, and Horlicks, malted milk, more out, and Ayurvedic medicine. The devotees were not very happy with the Vaidya, who chewed pan, while taking Prabhupada's pulse, and after he left, Tamal Krishna expressed his doubts to Prabhupada, saying that he wanted nothing to do with the man. Because the Vaidya spoke only Hindi, Prabhupada had asked Yasomati Nandan to be present, and Tamal Krishna said that Yasomati Nandan should deal with him. Prabhupada chided Tamal Krishna, saying this mood of non-cooperation was not good. We should all cooperate and follow the Vaidya's treatment for 8 days, knowing that Krishna could act through him. Most Vaidyas were like that, he said, but after all, he was sent by Krishna, and if Krishna liked, he could work through him. We should follow whatever he said and try to work cooperatively. Tamal Krishna pointed out that the Vaidya would be out of town for 5 days, during which time Prabhupada's disciples would attend to him. Prabhupada said that 2 men should be assigned so that there wouldn't be any strain. When Abhiram told him that Koladri had offered to make sandesh, Prabhupada's eyes opened wide. He said, yes, have him make. And when it was ready, he ate some of it, and a few spoonfuls of chiku and papaya. He seemed hopeful to try the treatment, but the whole night his sleep was disturbed by too much mucus and the inability to move his bowels. He called for Tamal Krishna in the morning and said that the Vaidya was no good. His prescription had created many problems. What was to be done, he asked. Tamal Krishna, Abhiram, and Upendra tried various measures to ameliorate the situation, and Prabhupada felt some relief. There was kirtan in Prabhupada's room that evening, and, as Abhiram described, all of us felt the ocean of ecstasy that Srila Prabhupada was floating in. After being in Russia for 3 weeks, Gopal Krishna returned with his report. A book about Hinduism had been published there, including a photo and 3 pages about Prabhupada and ISKCON. It portrayed us from the typical communist viewpoint of religion, but the Maha Mantra was included. Thus delivered, Prabhupada said with approval. And many important libraries had taken large orders of Prabhupada's books, as had the Indian Embassy. That afternoon, Prabhupada had Tamal Krishna read from Srimad Bhagavatam. He sat up in bed, put on his reading spectacles, and for the next hour held Radharasa Vihari's photo and meditated on them, occasionally leaning back with his eyes closed while listening. This was the medicine he wanted. Tamal Krishna could see how much Prabhupada had relished the reading, how, when listening, he had seemed completely transcendental to thoughts of his body. And subsequently, when Tamal Krishna suggested that read again, Prabhupada said, "This is the most important thing. Read as much as possible." Break. The following day, Prabhupada was completely exhausted. Mucus was filling up his whole system, and his legs and hands were swollen. Attending him, Tamal Krishna felt almost helpless. Prabhupada asked for Charnamrita from the deities, and in the afternoon the devotees had kirtan and read from Srimad Bhagavatam. Later, Sri K.J. Samaya came with Sri Prabhudas Patwari, the governor of Tamil Nadu, and a strong advocate of abstinence and moral virtue. They were shocked to see Prabhupada's condition, and Prabhupada asked them to return the next day. Prabhupada himself acknowledged that his condition seemed to have gone from bad to worse, and when we went in to see him the next morning, he had, to everyone's surprise, improved considerably. He had slept soundly through the night and looked well rested, and the mucus was practically gone. Prabhupada called for Samaya and the governor. He spoke to them about ISKCON and asked them to help arrange visas for his foreign disciples, so his foreign disciples could stay in India. He really stays on point, huh? They requested that he see the Vaidya again, and he said he would do so. Afterward, he asked Abhiram what he thought. Abhiram did not like the Vaidya, but he spoke carefully, expecting the Prabhupada would follow the Vaidya anyway. Because the treatment was given in love, Prabhupada would feel some obligation to reciprocate. Prabhupada told Abhiram that Shastra dictated that one should not overlook the advice of a big man. Quote, "Governor means favored by Krishna," he said. "Governor means big man. No one can become big man without being blessed by Krishna. You should not ignore the advice of a big man." Abhiram considered that there was an instruction for him in what Prabhupada had said. And Prabhupada resumed taking the Vaidya's medicine. Break. As Prabhupada's illness had worsened, he had gradually put more trust in his personal servants, especially Tamal Krishna. And as Tamal Krishna later remembered, he gave me the ultimate vote of confidence by letting me hold the key to his desk drawer. Oh, I remember this story. Oh. Everyone who served Prabhupada closely knew the importance of that key, which he used to secure his most valuable possessions and which he always kept with him. One day, Prabhupada asked Tamal Krishna for something that was locked away. But when Tamal Krishna went to retrieve the item, he couldn't find the key. I was completely bereft of the desire to live, Tamal Krishna recalled. At first, he didn't tell Prabhupada what happened. I scoured Hare Krishna land, he said. I went everywhere looking for that key, and I had people looking everywhere, but we could not find it. Finally, I went to Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, I have to tell you something. Yes? Prabhupada inquired. Srila Prabhupada, I lost the key. Call the GBC, Prabhupada said. Call the whole GBC here to decide what should be done. Oh, God, Tamal Krishna thought. Call the whole GBC. He couldn't figure any way out of it. Okay, he accepted. I am just going to call the whole GBC body to Bombay, and when they come, they can decide what to do with me. But then, when he had almost run out of hope, Tamal Krishna considered, let me try another key. And sure enough, the other key opened the lock. Like many locks made in India, this one could be opened by more keys than one. Tamal Krishna ran to Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, I opened it, he announced. He begged for another chance to hold the key. Prabhupada agreed. Now put the key on your Brahmin thread, Prabhupada directed. And Tamal Krishna did. Don't ever lose this. Famous story. Prabhupada's condition was such that he could hardly accomplish even small efforts. When he had to sign a letter to a bank, his hand was so unsteady that Tamal Krishna suggested he give power of attorney to someone to sign on his behalf. Prabhupada consented and named Tamal Krishna and me. In the evening, as Prabhupada lay in his bed, Brahmananda and Tamal Krishna recounted to him the history of Hare Krishna land. Though weak, Prabhupada listened carefully to each word as they described how he had persevered and triumphed over so many obstacles. That dog, he interrupted at one point. The devotees did not know what he meant. Was he referring to Nair or Mate? Then he explained that he had been staying in the company guest house next door to Siri Krishna Kapoor in the Juhu scheme. He would ride each morning to Mr. Kapoor's car to Juhu Beach, and he had to sit next to Mr. Kapoor's large German Shepherd dog. That dog. Oh. As Prabhupada spoke, Tamal Krishna and Brahmananda realized that even in bed, he was still conducting a battle. He was fighting for life so he could preach for Sri Radha Rasa Vihari. As Tamal Krishna was leaving, after offering obeisances, he exclaimed, all glories to Krishna's great soldier. The next day, Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna, I am thinking to go to Vrindavan and be treated by my Kaviraj there. What do you think? Tamal Krishna suggested that such a move should be considered by other disciples as well, and Prabhupada asked him to call them immediately. Tamal Krishna, Brahmananda, Surbi, Gopal, Krishna, Harisori, Upendra, Abhiram, Kaladri, and I sat around Prabhupada's bed, and Prabhupada asked each devotee to give his view on Prabhupada's going to Vrindavan. Tamal Krishna spoke in favor of going. He pointed out that even if Prabhupada were to remain in Bombay, in his present condition, he would not be able to attend any of the functions. Further, Prabhupada, the world Acharya, was known for his powerful preaching, and it would not be fitting for the public to see him in his present condition. And he added, Prabhupada could come back later. Prabhupada listened without comment. Brahmana said that Prabhupada should definitely go to Vrindavan. Harisori said he felt it was difficult to decide, that it depended on how strongly Prabhupada wanted to stay in Bombay as opposed to doing what was best for his health. It is for health, Prabhupada responded. and Hariswari immediately said that he was in favor of Prabhupada's returning to Vrindavan. Gopal Krishna disagreed, saying that it would be better for Prabhupada to remain in Bombay until after the opening. How could he leave Bombay with so many arrangements when so many arrangements had been made and so many important guests had been invited? Surabhi also favored Prabhupada staying because he wanted him to see the temple's opening. Oh, gosh. If Prabhupada went to Vrindavan, he pointed out he might not come back. When it was my turn, I said that in Bombay, with the constant noise from the construction, each day was difficult for Prabhupada, and each successive day would be even more difficult. Therefore, I concluded waiting 3 weeks would be too risky. As I spoke, Prabhupada was moving his head in affirmation. Abhiram spoke in favor of going to Vrindavan, and Upendra said he didn't know. For the most part, Prabhupada mainly listened, not expressing any personal preference. Next, he wanted to discuss the best course for treatment. His old friend, Dr. Ghosh from Allahabad, had written, and Tamal Krishna read aloud that Dr. Ghosh advised that Prabhupada should go to Jas Lok Hospital, the best in Bombay, for a thorough checkup and treatment. What is wrong with this proposal? Prabhupada asked. Tamal Krishna said that the doctors would probably want to give intravenous feeding. What is the use of artificial feeding when there's no digestion? Prabhupada asked. Making a point in favor of hospital, Tamal Krishna remarked that all Ayurvedic medical science was perfect, that practitioners had lost the science and now were mostly quacks, whereas allopathic medicine, although imperfect, had many expert practitioners. Prabhupada conceded the point, and there was more discussion, but in the end he concluded, hospital is no guarantee, but still we take it as up-to-date scientific knowledge. My godbrother, Tirtha Maharaj, had to undergo all these treatments, and they were very proud that he died with the latest scientific treatment. Boy. My Guru Maharaj, however, did not like it when he was given injections. He objected. Why are you giving? Going to a hospital means giving in to the mercy of the material scientists. Whatever they like, they will do. They cannot guarantee, and we cannot be confident. And going to Vrindavan, whatever may happen, let Krishna do it. Hospital is a chance technique. Going to Vrindavan, I have no objection. But now, here, there is a dilemma. I'm neither dying nor living. When Tamal Krishna questioned whether the Vrindavan Kaviraj was any better than the present one in Bombay, Prabhupada replied, better or worse, some husband must be there. Then Tamal Krishna offered a new argument that Prabhupada staying in Bombay meant a purpose for his living, to see the opening of the temple, whereas his going to Vrindavan was only for dying. That is only a sentiment, Prabhupada said. Living or dying is in your hands, is not in your hands or mine. The devotees understood that Prabhupada decided, and they were there to support him. Vrindavan, Prabhupada said, let's go. Yes, Prabhupada, Surabhi agreed. Where's Gopal? But Srila Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna said, what about the devotees here? They will not want to be separated from you, but then how will they be able to work on the opening of the temple? I mean, all the devotees, when they hear that you're going to Vrindavan, will want to come. Yes, they can come, Prabhupada replied. I have no objection. Tamal Krishna mentioned that 1,000 devotees from all over the world might want to come to be with Prabhupada, which would slow down ISKCON's work. Would that be all right? Again, Prabhupada said, yes, I have no objection. They can come. We can accommodate them. But then again, another devotee suggested there may be devotees who feel they can serve you better and please you more if they stay where they are and distribute books. Prabhupada replied that devotees could do that also. He was giving them the freedom to choose according to their individual inspiration and realization. Was it compulsory for the GBC members to come? Tamal Krishna asked. Yes, Prabhupada confirmed it was. There were no more questions, and the devotees offered their obeisances and left to make preparation for Prabhupada's moving to Vrindavan. Only Kaladri remained. So, Kaladri, Prabhupada asked, what do you think? I feel like an intruder, Kaladri replied. I shouldn't even be here. But it seems to me that you are waiting for Krishna to make some decision on whether you stay or go. What? It seems that you are waiting for Krishna's decision. If you are going to wait for Krishna's decision, you might as well be in Vrindavan. Yes, Prabhupada said, as he smiled and closed his eyes. That is very good advice. Harisori was dispatched to Vrindavan to get everything ready. But he phoned the next day to inform us that the road from Delhi to Vrindavan was closed, precluding the possibility of flying to Delhi and then driving the rest of the way. Oh, gosh. After some discussion, the devotees decided that Prabhupada should go by train from Bombay. Yikes. That's not a pleasant ride. I've taken that train. Whew. With Mr. Gupta's help, they booked a compartment in the first class section out on the deluxe, leaving at 11 the next morning. Brahmananda, Balimardan, Kaladri, Nayanabaram, some others, and I were booked in the air-conditioned chair car class. I phoned Dr. N.B. Desai and asked him to bring a large car to drive Prabhupada to the train station. I explained to him that Prabhupada was going to Vrindavan to leave his body. That evening, when Mr. Asnani came with the notary for Prabhupada to execute the power of attorney, I had not yet returned from the city, and despite Tamal Krishna's urging that he proceed without me, Prabhupada refused to sign the document without my okay. The terms were clear and straightforward. Should I read the document? I am the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and settler, trustee of the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, and president, chairman, trustee of various charitable institutions connected directly or indirectly with ISKCON, having branches throughout the world. What happened to 2? Here's 3. Oh, 3. There was no 2. Okay. As founder Acharya of ISKCON and settler and many properties, immovable and movable, bank deposits, bank accounts are in my personal name, which in fact are owned by the aforesaid institution and do not personally belong to me. 4, due to my old age, I'm desirous of appointing joint attorneys for me and ISKCON and the Bhaktivedanta BBT in the manner hereinafter appearing. Know ye, all these presents witness that I, Prabhupada, nominate, constitute, and appoint Tamal Krishna Goswami, Thomas Herzig, and Giriraj Das Brahmachari, Glenn Teton, my disciples, hereinafter called the joint attorneys, as my true and lawful attorneys for me, and on my behalf, as well as on behalf of ISKCON and the BBT, to do all and any of the acts, matters, and things, to exercise all or any of the powers and authorities hereby conferred upon them. I reviewed the document and approved, and Prabhupada signed. Early the next morning, Prabhupada had to sign a number of letters to the bank. And with those also, although Tamal Krishna had approved them, Prabhupada wanted my consent. Tamal Krishna took it that Prabhupada was showing us but we must do all important business jointly together. Around 9:30, Prabhupada's assistants escorted him downstairs. Hundreds of devotees were waiting on the ground floor, and they wept when they saw Prabhupada, many for the last time. Dr. Desai, who had arrived with his big Dodge, was shocked and pained to see Prabhupada's emaciated state. Here is the person with whom I fought and argued, he reflected. Here is the person who was such a fine debater that he was like a lion who could defeat anyone philosophically. He was reminded of Krishna's description in Bhagavad Gita of a person who withdraws within like a tortoise pulling his limbs into his shell. Dr. Desai had personally cleaned his car, a first for him, and his wife arranged silk bedding, flowers, and incense. When Prabhupada came down, devotees were crying, devastated by feelings of imminent separation. Dr. Desai felt like the cruel Akrura who took Krishna from Vrindavan and the gopis. But it was his duty, and he knew he had to do it. Brahmananda sat next to Dr. Desai, with me next to him, and then Tamal Krishna by the window. Prabhupada was lying on the back seat with Upendra sitting on the floor next to him. Drive slowly, drive very slowly, Tamal Krishna told Dr. Desai. The Bombay roads have potholes and Prabhupada will be uncomfortable if you drive fast. His nerves are pressing on his bones. There's hardly any flesh or fat. He has mainly skin, nerves, and bones. Very little muscle. When Dr. Desai slowed down, however, Upendra told him, Prabhupada wants you to drive faster. And he picked up speed. But the moment Dr. Desai hit the accelerator, Tamal Krishna objected. I told you to drive slowly. What are you doing? Slow down. Upendra just told me that Prabhupada wants me to drive fast. No, go slowly. So Dr. Desai slowed down. But then Upendra said, Prabhupada says go faster. Why aren't you going faster? Dr. Desai was in a predicament. But he considered that Prabhupada was the person he had to serve. So he sped up again and told Tamal Krishna, you sort this out with Upendra and allow me just to drive. Because of our speed and early start, we reached Bombay Central 35 minutes ahead of the scheduled departure and thought we had arrived with too much time to spare. I had my assistant, Ram Tulsi, go with Dr. Desai to the station master to get a wheelchair to take Prabhupada from the car to a special cabin on the train. Is the deluxe leaving 11? Dr. Desai checked with the station master. Didn't you read today's newspaper? The man replied, it's leaving at 10:30. The timing has changed that very day. Dr. Desai looked at his watch and exclaimed, there are 5 minutes left. The train is leaving in 5 minutes. I will pay you anything, he told the station master, but hold that train. Don't let it start until I tell you. What? I never heard such a request. There is a big team coming. A very holy person is going to leave his body in Vrindavan, and he has to be on that train. Leave his body? What do you mean? Dr. Desai and Ram Tulsi ran back to the car. The train was leaving a half an hour early today, Dr. Desai told me. No, I said, according to the timetable, leaves at 11. Whatever it says there doesn't matter. The station master is going to blow his whistle, and the train is going to go. So he ran to the platform. Some devotees came ahead and gotten Prabhupada's special cabin ready. Unfortunately, it was not an air-conditioned car. We knew that Prabhupada didn't prefer AC, but in this case, he really needed it. We got Prabhupada into his compartment just minutes before the train was to pull out. Dr. Desai had not had any food or water since 4:30 that morning, and he was extremely thirsty. He brought a Limca soda from a stand on the platform and was just about to drink it when Upendra rushed up to him and said, "Prabhupada wants to see you." Dr. Desai left the drink and hurried into the cabin, wondering why Prabhupada was calling him. "Come closer," Prabhupada said when Dr. Desai entered. When Dr. Desai came right up to him, Prabhupada said, "Thank you for driving me." Dr. Desai was touched. Prabhupada is about to give up his body, and except for this small service, Dr. Desai felt he hadn't done much of anything. He was overwhelmed with the feeling that he must surrender to Prabhupada at that very moment. In front of everyone, he paid full obeisances on the floor, caught hold of Prabhupada's feet, and put his head on them. "Don't touch his feet," Tamal Krishna told him. "No," he said, "this is it. This is the last chance I'll ever get." And looking up at Prabhupada, he said, "Prabhupada, I surrender to you. You are my spiritual master." Prabhupada put his hand on Dr. Desai's head and blessed him. With what meager strength he had, he raised himself up a little on one elbow and smiled sweetly. The train started to move, and one of the devotees alerted Dr. Desai he had better get off. The next station was quite far, so he reluctantly jumped off, and then he watched the train until the last car disappeared in the distance. With tears in his eyes, he returned to his car and got in. And lo and behold, he said later, there was Prabhupada's garland on the steering wheel. He had not forgotten me. He was so kind and considerate that he left the flower garland he was wearing on the steering wheel. I kept that garland for a long, long time. That was the last time I saw Prabhupada. From 1971 to 1977, I was fighting with him, debating with him, arguing with him. Finally, at the end, I surrendered. How are we doing with time? Should I go a little bit further? Yes? Back to Vrindavan. When Srila Prabhupada arrived at the Mathura station, Brahmananda carried him in his arms from the train to the waiting car. The devotees gathered to greet Prabhupada at the temple. The devotees gathered together to greet Prabhupada at the temple were distressed by how much his condition had deteriorated in the month since they had last seen him. Prabhupada proceeded directly to his sitting room, where a large bed had been set up. He lay still, with his eyes closed for some time, surrounded by his senior disciples. After a long silence, he quoted King Kulashekara's prayer, one of his favorites. Krishna Tvadiya Padapankaja Panjarantam. May Lord Krishna please let me die immediately, so that the swan of my mind may be encircled by the stems of your lotus feet. Otherwise, at the time of my final breath, when my throat is choked up with cough, how will it be possible to think of you? I was remembering the discussion we had, all of your disciples and you, Tamal Krishna said, when we were considering whether we should go to Vrindavan or not, how we were all giving different arguments, one side or the other. Then we all concluded that the best program was to come to Vrindavan, and now I can see it was the right conclusion because I feel we are at home. Here it is home. Krishna and Balaram are here. Prabhupada indicated his agreement. When the time came for the temple bell to ring, but Prabhupada didn't hear it, he said, "This is my concern." He's managing. There's a whole big thing about, they wanted to have a bell. And Prabhupada said, but who's going to maintain its timeliness? And he was like really on it. And didn't happen. Whenever it didn't happen, he'd be really on it. Here he is, in this condition. Such a huge, huge establishment. If not properly, regularly managed, then everything will be finished. He had been insisting for years that the temple authorities arrange for the regular ringing of the bell and considered a test of their management. I don't think that that's going to happen, Tamal Krishna responded. We're too much indebted to you to allow what you have established to become spoiled. Please see to it. Yes, Srila Prabhupada. In this condition, it is impossible for me. All you should have to do is just think about Krishna and Balaram. Yes, kindly give me that chance. In this condition, I cannot even move my body on the bed. Only this chance you should give me. Let me die a little peacefully without any anxiety. I have given in writing everything, whatever you wanted, my will, my executive power, everything. Disaster will happen if you cannot manage it. We do not want any disaster to happen, Tamal Krishna said. Our only business as your sons and servants is to maintain what you have established, even if we don't increase it, if we can just maintain it. Yes. You've done so much. Even if it's just maintained, it will be a great credit. We shall be proud if people will say, these young men are fit sons of their Guru Maharaj. That would be our great pride if people will say that of us, quote, say of us that they were worthy sons of their Guru Maharaj. I must thank you that you took me to London and again brought me without any difficulties, Prabhupada said. That's a great credit for you. For that, I'm thanking you that in this condition, a bundle of bones, you did it. Krishna will. So you will have kirtan now? Yes, Prabhupada. I'll bring out little kartals. Later, Tamal Krishna reassured Prabhupada, the bells are being rung on time, on the hour and the half hour. It is going on? Prabhupada said. Yes, oh yes. Akshayananda, the temple president, assured him. Everything's going on nicely. Where is that Dr. Sharma? He's here, Tamal Krishna said. Did that milk give you any mucus, Srila Prabhupada? No, that's good. It is very, very good, Prabhupada said about the milk. Really fresh. If I drink this milk twice, morning and evening, I think I can avoid any food. You don't like fruit juice? I mean to say, I can drink in the meantime, but by simply drinking this milk, I can live healthy. I think so. Saintly persons in the past did adopt that policy. They were living simply on milk. Are you feeling all right? Yes. You are happy to be in Vrindavan, I think. You look very natural being in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada agreed. A week later, Prabhupada stopped drinking. He didn't make any announcement, he just stopped. Previously, he had said that when his father had wanted to leave his body, he had stopped drinking, and that this was a bona fide way to proceed when the time came. But Srila Prabhupada, Upendra told him, you have to drink. If you don't drink, you'll become dehydrated. Oh, You want me to drink? Prabhupada replied, call the GBC. Abhiram informed the GBC members, and they and other senior devotees came into the room. Prabhupada said, if I want to survive, of course I'll have to take something. But my survival means so many inconveniences. Therefore, I have decided to die peacefully. Everything is in the hands of Krishna, said Tamal Krishna. And that had been the mood coming from Prabhupada. Everything depends on Krishna. Many times Prabhupada had said that whatever Krishna desired, he would accept. If Krishna allowed him to stay, he would stay. And if Krishna wanted him to go, he would go. Previously, a disciple had asked, you said that your Guru Maharaj left early because he was disgusted. Is that the case with you? And Prabhupada replied, no. If Krishna allows me to stay in your association, I'll be most happy to stay in your association. Now, however, Prabhupada opened his eyes and said, oh, Krishna wants me to do what I like. The choice is mine. He has given me full freedom. This was a different mood, a different answer. And it gave us a glimpse into the intimate reciprocation between Prabhupada and Krishna. We went out into the anteroom to discuss our response. If Krishna has given Prabhupada the choice, Kirtana said, and if Prabhupada is giving us the choice, then we should ask Prabhupada to stay. Everyone agreed, yes, we should ask him to stay. But all the GBC men aren't here, one of the devotees pointed out. Come on, Brahmananda retorted. What GBC is going to say they want Prabhupada to go? So it was unanimously decided. We would go back into Prabhupada's room and with Kirtananda as our spokesman, tell him that we want him to stay. Back in the room, Prabhupada was lying quietly on his bed. As soon as we finished offering obeisances, Kirtananda broke down, sobbing. He couldn't speak. Brahmananda, sitting behind him, rubbed his back to soothe him. Then Kirtananda implored Srila Prabhupada, if Krishna has given you the choice, then don't go. We need you. Is this your opinion? Prabhupada asked. Have you discussed? Yes, Brahmananda said. We have all met together. We want you to remain. Like they're little gods or something. And lead the movement and finish the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada was silent for what seemed like ages. Then he began to yawn. And in the same breath, he said, all right, just like that. And then he added, this is real affection. We were jubilant within ourselves, rejoicing. Prabhupada is going to stay. He's not going to leave us. I think that's a good place to break. Let's see what happens. Looks like the Juhu story is over. I thought he went back I thought he was there for the actual opening. That didn't happen, huh? Do what you Bombayites know? Was he there for that? Don't know.
I looked at the pictures and the opening was in 78, so I don't think he was there.
Okay. He was, okay. 78. Okay.